ahead and get our pre-meeting started. We'll just wait on Councilor Jensen. All right, so Trail Center Land, Carter.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Many of you will remember this little diagram that we put together for your use a couple of weeks ago, and in reality, you'll remember that this was an exhibit we used when this conversation started some 2 or 3 years ago originally. Council's request was for us to do a little homework as it relates to whether or not the lines, particularly adjacent to the facilities at the event center, were generally in an acceptable spot, given the demands we have for parking at times, as well as the potential for the facility to expand should we ever get to build out with regard to the city's, to the facility's master plan that was updated not too long ago. After doing some additional homework pursuant to these questions, these kinds of questions, it was determined that the lines are in a safe spot, so to speak, as it relates to the question of parking and facility expansion. We don't believe that they will encroach upon any of those efforts. And you may recall in your packet a pretty detailed analysis as it relates to Tom's team with respect to the parking and so on. Seem to think that when we get to use the parking at the driver's range that the district is about to exit, we will actually be in surplus as it relates to all the uses and so forth that and the ordinance requirements and so on that we're obligated to follow. So I think we're in pretty good stead, and if council agrees, then we would ask that we could forward a resolution to the floor so that we could continue moving as it relates to the possibility of transitioning this land to the BLM.
Okay, questions, thoughts? Yeah.
So I still have concern over the parking issue and usage, future usage. So I've on a fairly crude map, but it's as good as I can do.
Carter, I can share.
So so basically what I've done is after reading this today, I still have concern for future growth of parking, which this is currently paved, obviously, and then the dirt. But if a transaction goes through with BLM, there's no turning back. So I can also see in the future, some sort of better signage than what we've got, with the one small pole sign close to the entrance, but possibly something greater. I would want that this not be developable land that the city would ever sell, trying to stay in. But the other concern why I dropped this down and did a dog leg here was possibly for the future with the foundation, possibly in the future, and so that's why I dropped that down a little bit. I think Amber may have had some concern also, if we were, I didn't draw this in, but possibly what does it look like if, because there was a proposed hotel a few years ago up on basically this site with, and I took it that would combine and go into the event center directly, but so I don't know if there's any thought of, you know, changing this a little bit. But on this side, but that's mostly what I'm concerned with.
Would you want to say anything as far as staff recommendation and then Pat's concerns?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, I would completely agree with Counselor Sweeney that when the land is transacted, if ever, it's true. It would be really, really hard to try to reverse any of that to get that land back. And so if council does have that concern that, we would lose our abilities to manage and sort of control the property in question outside of the auspices of the BLM, I'm not sure why we would entertain any of this, to be completely candid. The whole thing, that's right. In that BLM has stated from the beginning that they really just want to maintain it in terms of conservation efforts as well as expansion for the trail center itself. And so without a doubt, Councilor Sweeney is right. That would be area that if parking would ever to be expanded, this would really be the only area that we could expand, given some of the landlocked issues and the terrain and everything else that the event center is surrounded by. So unless we went across the street at, say, the other end of the campus to expand parking. But and so I think there's a lot of merit with respect to what Councilor Sweeney is saying, but if council is concerned that the BLM shouldn't have the ability to control the space in the manner that the city would, I don't know why we'd move forward at all, frankly.
Carter, if we did come with a recommendation and you went to the BLM and said, hey, this is kind of what we're thinking, you have this, city's going to keep this, would that change any of the negotiations?
I don't know that it would change the negotiations dramatically. I have not presented this, of course, because this is the first time that I've been able to get a look at the proposal, but I don't think so. But in fairness, I've not asked the question.
Yeah, or Mike.
I kind of like the idea of hanging on to that section 4. I mean, when they do reenactments and stuff up there, it'd be nice for the city to have. So if Fort Casper wanted to go up and do something, we would have our land that they could do a wagon train or roping or something to tie in with some of the celebrations that the BLM does on there. I think it'd just kind of be nice to have our own area that we wouldn't have to get their permission to do something up there. But I like the idea of conserving all of this for, I mean, when you get up there on that hilltop and look out, you can see why they want to conserve it, because you can see the whole valley from there, and it ties right in with everything that they do up there in the trail center. You can see quite a bit. So yeah, I like the idea of holding on to that one little chunk.
Any others? Thoughts? Anybody not comfortable? Yeah, Kyle.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess the question I've had throughout this whole thing is, if there are no immediate plans the BLM has for expansion, maybe they're just trying to be proactive and again, just preserve the area in the future. But if the city doesn't have an appetite to put that up for like private development otherwise, I guess I'm curious why we do a land transfer at all. Why not just give the historic trail center, some sort of first right into the future and just leave as is until they have some sort of proposal. I guess I don't see the merits of a land transfer at this time if there's no proposal on the table. why is it not something we could just put a pin in until we do hear something from BLM about future expansion?
So,
Mm,
Mayor,
go
if I
ahead.
could, so my purpose isn't to derail this deal at all. I think the most interest, my guess is, most interest they've got is preserving, this and as it is, which I don't think is highly developable. And I wouldn't want this as, let's say, a hotel site. I think that would detract from the trail center and its significance. But so I would not like to see this whole thing derailed because of this, but I am concerned. One of the things that I've learned from owning several properties downtown is parking is key. And if you don't have parking, you really don't control your own destiny. Like the Wonder Bar, I had no control of parking. I had to lease either from the parking garage. We couldn't get the employees to walk across the street. So from Wolds and Mid-Aw, and if I've learned anything from Bob Ide is you don't sell your parking. He's been very successful in his manners of the major downtown buildings. So that's my main thought is future, not to sell it for a hotel site or a truck stop or anything like that that would detract, but simply as parking.
Ray, this is Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, well, whenever it's my turn.
No, you're good. You're next.
Okay. I assume Pat has a draft or a drawing of a diagram of where the property, what I'm assuming is the property to the east of that dirt parking lot. Is that correct?
Correct.
Kind of between there and the road
Yep.
to the east. Okay. So that's kind of just like he said, shortening that dog leg.
East west. Yeah.
Say that
Is
again.
so Pat was asking or recommending to maybe shorten that dog leg and just take that little square or rectangle of land, whatever, kind of to the east of that dirt parking lot, keep that, but the rest could be still sold. Is that what Pat is proposing?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay. So then I just a second question, if I could. It appears, if I read the memo correctly, that there's plenty of adequate parking now with the development of those dirt parking lots. And then like as Carter said, the space that is being vacated by the school district there to the west. I guess that's west. Or no, I'm sorry, to the east of the no, that is east. I'm sorry, to the east where the driving range used to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my question is Pat, are you thinking that because what I understood was, or what I thought I understood was that if the sports ranch and the event center had a major event, we have adequate parking, even if that took place. Is that a correct conclusion?
Yes.
Okay. So Pat, are you thinking that if the event center itself, that building, if we expanded that and added on, say, some auditoriums or smaller venues, perhaps, is that what you're thinking? That we might need even more parking?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, but again, once the land transfer and the sale happens, there's no way you're gonna get that back from the BLM.
Right. Sure. No, yeah, that part I understand. I just wanted to kind of understand, because as it seems now, just with the current size of both the event center and the sports ranch, we have more than adequate parking. And with the availability of that driving range space to develop and the improvement of those dirt parking lots, that we have a lot of there, that we have adequate parking for both of those facilities as is. So unless we expanded either the sports ranch or the event center, we would still be okay for the foreseeable, even long term for parking. Would you disagree with that, Pat, or no?
I do.
Okay. So you're thinking that there would be maybe perhaps more development of the event center itself that would require more parking?
So I haven't observed it, but evidently there was a major event going on at the sports ranch. And at the same time, there was something at the event center, and maybe they were in conjunction with each other.
I see.
And parking was a premium.
I see.
My guess is like today, and tonight, so the horse trailers are parked to the east. The cowboy area is basically to the east of the event center today. And I haven't been up there this afternoon, but my guess is parking's probably fairly full, but maybe not.
So that if the sports ranch had a similar size event, we'd be and needed all of their parking plus some overflow to this event center.
The other issue is if the halo effect happens around the sports ranch, and you've got hotel development across the street, and there's two large events, two things going on, one at the event center, one at the sports ranch, then you've got major conference across the street in conjunction with maybe both. Is there going to be enough parking? I don't know, but once you've made the deal, there's no turning back. That's my
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, thanks, Pat. I appreciate that clarification.
So in the interest of time, we have two other items on our pre-meeting. I think we probably need to make a couple decisions here. One is if council is wanting to make a proposal to take that area as far as Pat's recommendation or proposal is to do that, or if we look at the proposal of what Carter and the staff have given us, or I don't feel like we have enough time to really dig into this. And so if council's amenable to wanting just to move forward now and we have the votes to do that, I think Carter's open to that. Or if we need to talk more about it, I'd hate to take this back to a work session since we have talked about it. But if people are not comfortable, we can do that as well. So I guess there's three options, however you guys want to look at that. Yeah, cut.
I also don't want to just make another work session out of this, but I'd be curious what BLM's thoughts are on us carving out what Councilor Sweeney has outlined on this map. To me, that's the most premium land. And so I wonder if their interest wanes at all if that gets carved out. But regardless, for me, I guess I'm still not convinced of the need to sell right now. It's going to be there. It doesn't sound like we have an appetite to build a hotel or sell it to a hotelier or anything in the future. So I personally, because we're not quite on the same page and don't like to make rushed decisions.
So what I'm sensing is I don't know if maybe Pat's ready and Mike, it sounds like they're 100% behind it unless I'm reading everybody else wrong. But if you look at it, I don't know if everybody is ready to make a decision. I'd like to do a little bit more research and talk a little bit more about it. And like Kyle said, I'd hate to put it back in a work session, but I don't know what that would look like, Carter. If that's something you guys would want to do to have the conversation. And then Kyle said, what does that look like? I just don't think we can get through this in the next few minutes before our meeting goes. And so I don't know what your thoughts and recommendations would be, Carter.
Well, if it's okay with the council, I would have no problem having a conversation with the director of the Conservation Fund and see what it is that, if he sees any downside with regard to the proposal that Councilor Sweeney has brought forward. And maybe bring that feedback back to another gathering and go from there. How's that?
That would be, council okay with that?
Okay.
Great.
I will do so.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the conversation. Sorry to rush it a bit. We can get that on have a much longer conversation around this. Okay, Fort Casper admission fees, Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. We need to, from time to time, evaluate each of our series of admission fees that we have throughout the rec center enterprises, if you will. And it is now time to talk about Fort Casper, particularly as it relates to some of the losses that we incurred in our revenue stream in the general fund. So if we could, I'd like to invite Zelina and Nick up to talk about the proposal that the detail of which you could read, in your memo. But nonetheless, if you have questions pursuant to what these fine folks present to you tonight, feel free and bring those up.
Mayor, councilors, thanks for having us. Appreciate it. I'll just go over quickly what we have in this memo and the proposed increases, and then if you have any questions, please let us know. So what we are proposing for your approval is to do two things at Fort Casper. The first one would be to have a $1 increase across the board with all of our admission rates at Fort Casper, which includes adults $4 to $5, seniors $3 to $4, teens $3 to $4, youth $1 to $2, and then children 5 and under still remain free. So it's just a $1 increase across the board. The second piece is adjusting how we are doing our private rental rates. Previously, before this proposal, we had private rental rates that were when the museum opens. So it would be $20 an hour and $40 an hour based off of when it was, or $20 an hour when the museum was open and $40 an hour when the museum was closed. In addition, we would charge $1.50 per person that came for that rental. What we're proposing is that we change that to have instead of charging $1.50 per person that comes to a private rental, just piecing that out and simplifying it to a small group rental rate and a large group rental rate. So what you see before you is when the museum's open, we would be charging $40 an hour for a small group and $60 an hour for a large group. And when the museum's closed, we'd be charging $60 an hour for a small group and $80 an hour for a large group. And as you see in the memo, we did a comparison of other municipally owned museums across the state and found that even with this rate increase, we are still we still are one of the lowest cost to entry museums in the state for municipally owned museums. With that, does anybody have any questions?
Questions about the admission fees, the recommendations? Kyle.
Thanks, Mayor. When was the last time they were increased?
So when we, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I made sure when we did our, back in 2018, you all went through the cost recovery practice. And at that point is when we did basically the same thing here and went up $1 across the board. So from what I have seen, it was back in 2018.
$1 increase 7 years ago?
Yep.
Thank you.
Others, yeah, Jenna.
I just want to say I 100% support it. Very reasonable fee still considering. So I think, yes, we need to support that and move ahead.
Any other questions for staff? Is council okay with the admission increases? Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on our agenda, the Mesa de Sol.
I can make this really quick, Your Honor. We have the opportunity to consider again, and we've done this in the past a while back, the possibility of offloading the property that you see here outlined in blue. This is in the area of Jordan and Central. They're kind of adjacent to the Metal Arc development, if you will, for lack of a better term to use here, as I sit with you. The city has owned this property for a number of years, for a long time, and we've sensed some interest from the development community, and we thought with your blessing, we would try to market it and see if in fact we couldn't get some developers to pick it up for purposes of creating some housing options in the area. Without a doubt, some of this could be used for affordable housing, and you know, other variations around that, given the surrounding application of a variety of housing elements. I could see a number of things that could come to pass, particularly in the affordable realm, if you will, of housing options. So with that, you all know kind of the drill of how this goes. If you're comfortable with it, we'll advertise it and see what we get by way of response.
I'm 100% behind it. I would definitely, I don't know how we would go down that road, but affordable housing is incredibly hard, I think, for individuals. I have a bunch of Gen Zers that are getting into become adults, and so I hear it, I see it, and they talk about not being able to ever buy a house. And so I think Casper could definitely have some developers that would consider trying to build $1 million houses for people to not be able to buy in this community. So anyway, that's my rant. I'm for it. All right.
We will get moving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time, everyone. I do not have anything else for the agenda.